about the dredging or the removing the soil on the bottom or the base of a river or a lake. Normally, there are now rivers and lakes which, due to the heavy rains, sometimes spills overflows from to the bank and then enter the populated areas. So, as a solution, I propose in 2012 to President Mahinda Rajapaksa to dredge the river beds. That means underneath the river, the bottom of the river, there is a ground. So make it further deep so that when the rain falls, the water level the river or even a lake can hold is more. So therefore, there won't be a spillover effect where the water enters the river banks and the populated villages and causing flood. So now the issue is the dredging of the Tissa Maharama, Sri Lanka's down south Tissa Wewa, by a Chinese company, and there had been news reports on the Sri Lanka's News First channel, which is owned by Maharaja Broadcasting Corporation, which actually backed the LTT, supported LTT during the 30 plus year war. They prominently tried their best to undermine the warfare during the 30-year war, and that is how they did. Okay, even the news readers at ESFM, I remember those days during the war period when they announce news every 1 hour on the top of the hour. That means either 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, like that, every 1 hour on the top of the hour. They used to say LTT, attack Sri Lanka army, and number of Sri Lanka army personnel have died. One LTT personnel have died. Right? That's how they reported in a biased way to support the LTT. Okay, now the situation is the same channel, MTV's News First, which is renamed as News First, revealed about this People's Liberation Army soldiers dredging the Tissa Wewa at Tissa Maharama, and this pointed their cameras on their uniforms to say that it's a similar uniform to the People's Liberation Army of China uniform. So I also did a video on this. Thereafter only this so-called director of the government's Department of Archaeology, government's own Department of Archaeology, Director General, so-called Senior Professor Manatunga, had ordered to, stop the dredging by the Chinese company. They say whether it's Chinese or American, dredging must stop. So what he was doing all this time, after dredging almost like 50% of the Tissa Wewa only, the senior director general, Professor, so-called Professor Anura Manatunga, Department of Archaeology, of the government's own Department of Archaeology, like talking about this dredging and telling, okay, China must go back because there are artifacts in the bottom of the lake. So these, director generals of the government's own Department of Archaeology, drawing high salaries, living on their bungalows, quarters, sending their children to the best schools, enjoying all the facilities. Were they sleeping all this time? Until I put a YouTube, and News First did a YouTube and a video, news broadcast. Accordingly, I piggy-rided and took it and talk about it. Thereafter only these, government officers who must have been sleeping all this time talking about this and remember everything, and now say, China, please go back. So this is bogus, because government tell these officers, now you shout and tell China to go. That is how it happens, because these government officers are under political, slavery type, political backing to the political leaders in this country, and accordingly they are being told by these political slave masters, okay, now you shout, and then for our survival of our family politics, you shout like this all of a sudden, and then we will send back the People's Liberation Army soldiers back to China. Right? And also the so-called social scientist and environmentalist Dr. Ravindra, He had also started talking about it only after News First video. They never said anything after News First video appeared for weeks, and nobody talked about. Once I took it on the YouTube, only all these people opened their eyes. And Ravindra, so-called Dr. Ravindra Kumar Karyavasam. So he is a convener for the Center for Environment and Nature Studies. You know, so he also take up the same argument, about this ecosystem and all those, etc., etc. But the thing is, what were they doing all this time? Center for Environment and Nature Studies, an NGO, drawing high salaries, taking all the benefits. People's Liberation Army taking or doing all this, but they sleeping all this time. That is the question here. So this shows that they also say that they will be taking up the matter with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. It's like a thief, takes some, rob certain thing, and thereafter the victim, from whom the thief have stolen the goods, the victim who lost the item, go and talk to the thief's mother and father and ask what to do now, like that. That is the same situation when this professor Manatunga, so-called Professor Anura Manatunga, and so-called environmentalist and so-called social and scientist Ravindra Karyavasam go and take the advice now after shouting like this, sleeping all this time from President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, right? So this type of things internationally undermine our relationship with China. Right? China comes here once they have been asked and negotiated only, they send their soldiers to do this work. And now, this type of political things, China must not let down their country's good reputation like this because of this manipulation. Because dredging of the Tissa Wewa in Tissa Maharama is needed, because there can be floods. I don't know the real reason they did the dredging, but as time to time, when there are various things stored on the bottom of the river bed or the lake bed here, they have to be removed, and the lake bed must be made further deep to accommodate more water volume to the lake. So otherwise it will spill over and flood the whole area. And so many people lives will be lost, animals, livestock, agriculture, everything will be lost if there are floods. So this type of political work, now the politicians want that to happen, and we are stopping all this dredging by the People's Liberation Army. Ask the People's Liberation Army to go home because America doesn't like it. Now let the river water overflow during the coming rain season, and then let the people die, and then we pass the curse to America and Maharaja Broadcasting TV. That's what they are trying to do. So this is why Sri Lanka becomes a failed system.